Okay, guys, so today I want to talk about accessories. What's the point of accessories? Why do we have them in there? What are they doing? Because I feel like a lot of people do not fully understand the point of accessories. Now, accessories are not going to necessarily blow up your lifts. They're not going to make your squat insane, your deadlift insane, or your bench insane. Contrary to popular belief, a lot of people think that they have to hammer away and do a million different accessories to get their main lifts to go up. But really, specificity is the main thing that's going to get your lifts to go up. You know, I've talked to so many powerlifters on my podcast and just, in person over the years, over training techniques, programming what works. I've programmed for people for a decade. I've trained for 17 years myself. And the one commonality that I always see is that specificity is king. So in the sport of powerlifting, if you want to get a really good squat, you got to squat a lot. If you want to get a really good bench, you got to bench a lot. And if you want to get a really good deadlift, you got to deadlift a lot. And it's no different for any exercise you may choose. So if you want to get really good at pull-ups, you got to do a heck of a lot of pull-ups very often. It could be anything. It could be split squats. The same thing stands. So that's why you'll often see rapid improvements at any new exercise that you target, whatever that may be. And it's often the case where the very first time you do an exercise, you're going to get really sore from it. And you're going to be like, wow, that's a weakness. It's just a different stimulus, guys. It's not even necessarily a weakness. It's an entirely new stimulus to where you're going to get sore up doing it the first couple times, and then it's going to go away just like it would with any other exercise. So it doesn't even necessarily designate a weakness if you get very sore from any newly introduced exercise. But basically the point is, if you want to get good at something, you have to continuously train that thing. This is why I say 2 to 3 squat days a week. That's going to be your sweet spot. Benching 3 to 4 days a week is going to be your sweet spot. Deadlift 1 day you can get away with. That's the one where squats can carry you through and improve your deadlift quite a bit. But the point of this video is talking about accessories. What is the place of them? Why do we do them? When do we do them? How much of them do we do? So I think accessories need to be looked at rather than how much are they going to improve your main lifts. They need to be looked at as a tool that you implement depending on how much time you have to train. So your allotted training time. Let's say you're someone who's 18, 20 years old with a lot more time on your hands. You don't have kids. You don't have necessarily a full-time job. You have more free time. You can train for 4 to 5 hours. Obviously, at that point, you're going to incorporate a ton of accessories, and there's no reason not to. But if you're someone with a ton of responsibilities, you're 35 years old, you have 3 kids, you have a full-time job, you have all this stuff, you have to get up at 5 a.m., you're not going to want to train as long. You're going to want to knock out your sessions in an hour and a half, which is typically what I like to target with most of my guys. Some guys might push 2 hours, but I try to get it set up to where my guys can get the job done in an hour to an hour and a half. Because people just have lives outside of the gym, and it's not always practical. So accessories come into play depending on how much time you have. You have to pick and choose what you're going to get the most bang for your buck on. And this points to indicator lifts. Indicator lifts are simply the main accessories that are going to help a given lift. So if we pick one out for squat, it might be a Bulgarian split squat. That might be the number one thing you can do outside of squats that will increase your squat. Or even front squats. It could be a variation of the main lift. So if we want to find the thing that best helps our squat outside of simple back squatting, it might be front squats. So that's one you want to throw in as an accessory. Or for bench, it might be dumbbell bench or dips. Those might be the 2 things that really help your bench the most. You throw those in. For deadlift, it might be 45-degree back extensions. You throw those in. So you pick out the number one or number 2 exercises on each of your main lifts that is going to most help your main lifts. And those are going to be part of your main accessory protocol. Beyond that, many accessories are going to come down to bodybuilding and injury prevention. So you might throw in more face pulls to even out the stress on the shoulders, even out the pressing movements, work on the scapular retraction. So that's why face pulls might be in there. And face pulls aren't an exercise that's going to increase your bench per se, but it's going to strengthen the shoulder girdle and potentially keep you healthier. So that's why we throw that in. So we look at injury prevention. Balancing out the quad work of squats with hamstring work like hamstring curls or GHRs or 45-degree back extensions, that sort of thing. So the second thing we look at past indicator lifts would be injury prevention. Why are we doing these? Even programming in things like curls is a flexion-based movement to even out the extension-based movements. Extension. So we're trying to even out the extension with flexion. That keeps the elbows healthy. So that's why we might throw in curls even beyond a bodybuilding approach. So that's going to be the number 2 thing. So number 1, indicator lifts. Number 2, injury prevention is our second reason for having accessories to even things out. And number 3 would be just bodybuilding physique work. What do you want to improve upon? Are your delts lagging? Do you want to get a wider shoulder base? Do you want to get those Derrick delts where your delts are out to here? You're going to do a lot of lateral raises. Hammer away at the lateral raises. That's what I've been doing myself lately. I've been incorporating more bodybuilding work, trying to bring up weaknesses. We might do curls 4 to 6 days a week. And that's the cool thing about accessories that are isolation-based movements. You can train these lifts very frequently, and they're not going to add much cumulative fatigue at all, and they're not going to tax your nervous system at all, and they're not going to be movements that take much to recover from. So you can train things like curls nearly every day. Lateral raises, same kind of thing. And while lateral raises can place some stress on the rotator cuffs, so they're not going to be for everybody, it's a relatively easy movement that's not very taxing. So you look at, what do I want to bring up? Quads. Do I want to bring up my quads? Maybe a lot of leg extensions if you don't have knee issues. Or high rep ass to grass squats with the bar for like sets of 30. That's what I've been doing a lot of lately with like lightweight, 65, upwards of 95 for sets of 30 to really blow up the quads and get that blood flow in there. These are all options. So physique-wise, that's number 3 reason why we throw in accessories. And one of the things too, as you get older, you'll see that your training will segue from heavy movements more frequently and more volume with the heavy movements with the main lifts to more accessories. Obviously, to get as strong as possible on the main lifts, you're going to need to hit the main lifts. That's got to be the focus. But as you get older, you might be better off incorporating more isolation-based machine work, bodybuilding work, especially in an off-season scenario to kind of even things out. So if my guys are in a meet prep and let's say they're 10 weeks out or less, we're going to gradually ramp down the accessories and ramp up the frequency. And then at the very end, that last block or so, I might pull out more of the accessories. And sometimes you want to pull out accessories as late as possible to get a super compensation effect. So if you're peaking for a 1 rep max or for a competition, you pull out the accessories at the end, you get a little boost from the drop volume, your strength blows up. But in an off-season phase where we're doing more bodybuilding, we don't have any competitions coming up, I would have my guys do more accessories, higher reps, not necessarily pushing strength as much. So in an off-season type bodybuilding phase, you might be at a point where your strength is relatively stagnant. Your strength isn't necessarily a priority at that point, but your strength potential will go up because you're hitting different rep schemes than you usually do. Higher reps, you're packing hypertrophy on, packing muscle on. It's a hypertrophy focus, I should say. So that has its time and place too. And as guys get older, you might want to prolong that hypertrophy bodybuilding phase where you're doing more accessories, where you're doing more isolation movements in the off season for a longer period of time, because it's going to be easier on the joints and you're going to pack on muscle, which is going to increase your chances of getting stronger when you drop the reps back down and go heavier. So these are all points about where accessories come into play, how we use them, where I would incorporate them and all that sort of thing. So I'm not going to, keep droning on about this. I think that gets the point across. And if you guys like the video, give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with all of this? Do you do a lot of accessories? What are your main accessories? And are you guys mainly focused on increasing the main lifts? Let me know. Thanks, guys.